We're going to have a real debate on the evidence in the Justin Baldoni-Blake Lively case. One side will argue for the actress, the other for the actor. Bit of a preview of what we can expect to come. Let's get into it right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. So we wanted to do something that we haven't done yet in our coverage of the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni drama. We want to debate it out. We want one attorney to take one side, and we want another attorney to take the other side. And this is going to be based on what we know so far, the apparent evidence presented right now. Obviously, we don't know the full context of the case or what will come out of it. And to also be clear, before I bring on my guests, the sides they are arguing doesn't necessarily mean what they individually believe. They are great lawyers. They are just going to be arguing one side over the other. I know there's a lot of passions and a lot of commentary and a lot of feelings on this case. I just want to make that clear. But this is going to be good because it's going to perhaps give us a preview of what we can expect at a future trial in 2026, if we get there. But how did we actually get where we're at right now? So Blake Lively files this complaint, and there was a complaint that then matured, even though it's a little bit different, into a federal lawsuit. And it was against Justin Baldoni, It Ends With Us co-star, her director, his production company, Wayfair, the company's CEO, Jamie Heath, other defendants. And the claim is that Baldoni sexually harassed her during the production of that movie. And she claims that Baldoni directed and helped orchestrate a digital and media smear campaign against her. The idea being that Baldoni and his team conspired to draw up all of this negative attention and press and turn the public against her as a form of retaliation for Lively speaking up about her allegations against Baldoni. That's the main claim. And that, by the way, if she did make her allegations public, he would discredit her. That's her main allegation. He filed a lawsuit of his own against her, her husband, actor Ryan Reynolds, and others, claiming they defamed him, they tried to extort him, essentially that there was a weaponization of false allegations against him, that they used their power and prestige to bully him into giving Blake Lively full control over this film, that he was boxed out. And he also sued the New York Times as well for publishing a bombshell report, an article on Blake Lively's complaint the day after she filed it. And he claimed that the Times presented a completely one-sided narrative filled with factual inaccuracies, out of context messages and communications, claims they didn't do proper due diligence here, that this was a false one-sided narrative. But that's the main crux of what we're dealing with. We see this heated legal battle. Now we want to debate it out. So I am joined by two great attorneys. I am joined by Dina and Safa Robinson-Ferrer. It's great to have you both here. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I did the right caveat, right? The positions that you're going to argue doesn't necessarily mean your personal feelings about the case, right? Fair?
That is correct.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Dina is going to be arguing in favor of Blake Lively. Safa is going to be arguing in favor of Justin Baldoni. Hey everybody, this is another Law&Crime legal alert. The Los Angeles wildfires are still making an impact. It is estimated that these wildfires caused more than $250 billion worth of damage. The loss of life is just immeasurable. And there are reports that insurance companies canceled thousands of homeowners' fire policies in the months before the wildfires. Were those cancellations even legal? Will insurance companies be able to help people recover all that they lost? Well, I'll tell you what, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, they are here to help. They were there for the Northern California wildfires. They were there in Maui, and now they're here for you and the families affected by these horrific fires. So if you've lost loved ones, your home, your business, your property because of the Los Angeles wildfires, you can visit www.forthepeople.com/LCFire, and you may be entitled to significant compensation. Another quick disclaimer I have to give here. When I ask a question to either Safa or Dina, this is not me favoring one side or another either. I want to have an intellectual conversation, debate this. So if the questions seem pointed or specific, they are, but I don't want you interpreting that as if we are favoring one side over the other. Okay, so we're going to start with kind of opening statements, all right? And Dina, I will start with you. Since Blake Lively first filed this complaint, she started the legal action. Your opening statement in the case.
Okay, great. So this case isn't about who is more famous. It isn't about who should have had creative control. It's not even about who's more likable. Justin Baldoni might have wanted you to think that, and he may want you to think that as the case goes on. But it is about, did one coworker sexually harass the other coworker? And that's it. And we're going to show evidence that he did. In particular, we're going to show that the agreement that both parties signed in November 2023 outlined things that if your coworker had done this to you, or if you actually did this to another coworker, I imagine you wouldn't be surprised to have it categorized as sexual harassment. And I want you as a juror to think about that as this case is presented. Some of the evidence you're going to hear is, for example, that Justin Baldoni had to agree in that agreement to no more showing nude videos or images of women, including the producer's wife, to Blake Lively. He had to agree to no more creative kissing or improvising kissing. He had to agree to not coming into her trailer if she was nude. We are going to show that these actions constituted sexual harassment under the law. And also, you're going to see and that or hear that 7-minute clip that he played, that the voicemail he left at 2 a.m. Does a coworker leaving that kind of message at 2 a.m. show evidence of the sexual harassment that she claimed? We're going to show it does. In particular, her leaving him at the end, referring to her child on her boob. Imagine you saying that to your coworker at 2 a.m. Would you not consider yourself to be called up into your HR the next day? And so those are just a few of the things that you're going to hear. Remember, this is what the case is about. It's not about fame. It's not about, whether or not her husband didn't like the script. It is about, what are you allowed to do to your coworker under the law?
All right. Safa, you're arguing for Justin Baldoni. You're opening.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is attorney Safa Robinson, and I represent Justin Baldoni. What initially began as a budding relationship between coworkers and colleagues has suddenly turned into a battle of power at the hands of Miss Lively. Now, opposing counsel just said, and I agree with her, this isn't a case of who's more famous or anything like that. And opposing counsel's correct. There were agreements that were entered into in order to continue production on this case. And those agreements were entered into because Miss Lively forced my client to engage in and agree to those things just to continue production of this film that he had worked so hard on. Now, you're going to learn a number of things in this film. You're going to learn about who Justin Baldoni is. You're going to learn that he's an actor and he's been a director for quite some time. Not only that, but more importantly, you're going to learn of other titles that he holds in this case. More importantly, the title of husband and the title of father. Not only that, but Mr. Baldoni is an advocate for victims of domestic violence. Now, as this trial commences and you begin to hear the testimony in this case, you're going to see key pieces of evidence. You're going to see a ton of evidence. You're going to see text messages, video footage, and you're going to hear testimony in and of itself that is evidence. And we're going to pick through each of those things. You're going to see text conversations between Miss Lively and between Mr. Baldoni. You're going to hear and see a video of a scene from this movie that Miss Lively claims was rooted in sexual harassment, but I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, it was not. In fact, to ensure the integrity of the production of this case, Mr. Baldoni went and hired what we call an intimacy coordinator. And you're going to learn about that. And a part of the job of that intimacy coordinator is to ensure that as these intimate or romantic scenes come about through filming, that they are done with integrity, that they are done appropriately, and that they are done within the ramifications of what they should be as agreed to on set. Mr. Baldoni met with that individual. He informed Miss Lively that he hired that individual. However, Miss Lively, instead of meeting with this coordinator, with Mr. Baldoni, decided that she wasn't going to meet with her. I want you to think about that when you determine or question whether or not there was sexual harassment in this case. Now, again, we're going to go through key pieces of evidence. And again, the nature of the cause is sexual harassment. I want to note for you, ladies and gentlemen, that Mr. Baldoni hasn't been charged with any crime. He hasn't been charged with assault. He hasn't been charged with battery. He hasn't been charged with harassment, and he certainly has not been charged with sexual misconduct. Now, at the end of the trial, where I'm going to get back up here and speak to you about the key pieces of evidence and testimony that you've heard, and I'm going to ask that you make a finding in favor of Mr. Baldoni against Ms. Lively and Mr. Reynolds.
All right, look at this. Two stellar opening statements. All right, so now I will play, I guess, the part of the moderator, the judge. I'm going to go through certain pieces of evidence and challenge. So, Dina, one of the things that you mentioned that came out recently was the behind-the-scenes footage of Lively and Baldoni filming that dance montage scene. And Lively had argued in her complaint that during this scene, Baldoni improvised kissing, he improvised other intimate moments, told her that she smelled good, that he broke character. You would say, oh my gosh, it seems like a winning case. But then Baldoni releases the footage. And he says she was the one who broke character. She was the one who made fun of his nose. Her claims that she was uncomfortable, she's laughing, she's comfortable. He only said it smells good after she made a comment about her spray tan and her body makeup. Here's a sample of that.
I feel so nosy.
I know.
I
And
just noses.
And my nose is so big.
Dina, doesn't that footage help Baldoni?
To me, I thought his release of that footage, as well as the 7-minute voicemail, showed how unaware he still is, frankly. I don't think he realized that the stuff he did at the time maybe was inappropriate. And I think he still doesn't see it. Because to me, when he goes in and nuzzles her neck, that crossed a line. You know, there's just boundaries. Even though you are an actor or an actress and you're performing an intimate scene, if it didn't call for him to nuzzle into her neck, he's not supposed to. And I know there's a question. He said it smells good. He didn't say her neck smelled good. He didn't say the body, glitter smelled good, but he does nuzzle into her neck and she does laugh afterwards. But I can tell you there's a lot of women who laugh when they feel uncomfortable. So to me, the nuzzling into the neck when that was not part of the scene was inappropriate.
Well, Safa, I'll give you a chance to respond because her team released a statement after the video was released saying it proves, it shows her discomfort. Any woman in that position would recognize her discomfort.
I can understand their position. However, and here's the thing, and back to the opening statement, the importance of having that intimacy coordinator. What is allowable in this setting and what is unallowable? We don't know that because we don't know what the script called for. And so assumingly that, and both of these were writers and creators with respect to this movie, this scene was created at the hands of Miss Lively and Mr. Baldoni upon information and belief. And so these writings were married together to create this scene that showed romantic, affectionate transgressions between two individuals. And so, we do have scenes in Hollywood that show full sexual, activity and sexual content. And so again, we don't know what the line is because it was never clear. I think that considering that this scene is romantic in nature, it's flirty and there's some evidence that Miss Lively calls herself yummy, that, it's going to go in favor of Mr. Baldoni because it doesn't appear to me that this was a situation where, it was uncalled for considering the nature of what this scene was to show.
And I'll talk about that yummy message in a minute, but Safa, just sticking with you, one of the most difficult things for Baldoni will be the text messages. What do I mean by that? The allegation that she was the victim of a smear campaign, that the text messages prove that. So you have these text messages that were presented in her complaint and lawsuit between Baldoni and Melissa Nathan, his crisis management expert, Jennifer Abel, his publicist. And if you go to Lively's complaint, one of the things that it says is that August 16th, Miss Nathan circulated a Daily Mail article entitled "String of hard-to-watch videos that have surfaced following tone-deaf Q&A to promote It Ends With Us could tarnish 36-year-old Golden's Hollywood image for good," to which Abel responded, "Wow, you really outdid yourself with this piece." And Miss Nathan replied, "That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best." There's another one in Lively's complaint where she points to a text message seemingly from Justin Baldoni where he allegedly expresses concern that Melissa Nathan's proposal to combat or fight against Blake Lively's claims that it wasn't aggressive enough. The message is writing to Mr. Heath and Miss Abel. He said he was not in love with the document they sent, not sure I'm feeling the protection I felt on the call with Ms. Nathan and her colleagues, and in response, Mr. Heath attempted to reassure Mr. Baldoni that they had found the right people for his campaign. In Mr. Heath's words, the most important part of this is how quickly they can shut things down and place stories in your favor. Also, in Lively's complaint, she writes about other messages where, for example, it says, later that day, Ms. Abel and Ms. Nathan exchanged the following text exchanges that Mr. Baldoni wants to feel like Ms. Lively can be buried. Ms. Abel and Ms. Nathan agreed that, of course, they would not do that, but they couldn't just say so in writing. We can't write it down to him. We can't write, we will destroy her. Imagine if a document saying all the things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. And then there was another message from Ms. Nathan to Ms. Abel, you know we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. So Safa, again, just generally those kinds of messages, how problematic is that for your client? You know, you're representing the side of Justin Baldoni.
You know, unfortunately, they're not great for my client, but that's also the reason why we have trials on this case. You know, usually and generally speaking, you know, the reason why we end up at a trial is because both sides have issues. And I do think that this is going to be an issue for Mr. Baldoni to get around. It's not impossible. PR crisis teams exist for this very reason. We want to make sure that, you know, we are ensuring the integrity of why we hire these groups and things of that nature. And so I think there's going to be a question there. It doesn't look great for us as to, you know, is this protecting ourselves and protecting the integrity of who we are? Or is this in fact a smear campaign and, you know, things of that nature? I would note that a lot of these appear to be in response to Miss Lively doing essentially the same thing. But I don't think that anything of this nature is great for either side.
Now, Dina, he responded to all of this because in his complaint, he said there are key parts of those exchanges that are missing, that they were excluded from Lively's complaint. They were excluded from the New York Times article, like there was an emoji to show that there was a sarcastic tone between Nathan and Abel to say that really they weren't responsible for what was going on. Or how about this, quote, specifically in the immediately preceding text message exchange on August 16th, Nathan forwarded a screenshot of a message from a reporter informing her for the first time of the Daily Mail article. In response, Nathan wrote, damn, this is not fair because it's also not me. Everything now looks like it's me. And perhaps unknowingly, Nathan was already anticipating the accusations that would soon be leveled against her and her fellow the Wayfarer parties. That's something that was written by Baldoni. And then Baldoni, in his complaint, argues that other parts of the conversation were excluded, like where Jennifer Abel texted him, the truth is your defense. You've done nothing wrong. There's also over a year worth of facts and paper trails and people who can go on background as your defense. Or how about this? Baldoni includes a group chat text message with the tag team, tag being Melissa Nathan's company, where it reads, like, come on, we had nothing to do with that. This is crazy. She doesn't have a good reputation. All of this is organic stuff from real people making TikToks, not bots. So he provides a response saying, Dina, that all these bad messages that came out in her complaint, let me say, we weren't behind it. We're not going as far as she claims we're going with all of this.
Well, I mean, he sure intended to go there. I mean, that's clear from some of the text. I mean, I think the problem here is we're not even at the point where evidence is actually being introduced, right? We're just seeing a lot of text. And once this goes, you know, once this kind of picks up speed, we'll see the depositions where we will have them talk under oath, where the PR, the crisis person will under oath have to say what their role was in their representation with Justin Baldoni. I don't think he's going to be able to say, though, that they were not trying at all to hurt her, because those initial texts in that initial complaint by Blake Lively in the New York Times shows that that was what they were hired to do. It may not have been all of them. You know, there might have been organic stuff to begin with. But the problem for Justin Baldoni is if he hired them with any marching orders to go after her because he was worried she was going to go after him, that is classic retribution for the sexual harassment that occurred on the thing. Even in the agreement, there was the agreement that she wouldn't go after him.
Let's talk about that, because Safa, do you think it's an issue that Baldoni and his team signed on to that 17-point list of demands from Lively to be met before they started production again. Not the 30-point list, because he basically said, I never even saw that, never even agreed to it. But there was a 17-point list of demands. Things like point 5, no discussion of personal experiences with sex or nudity, including as it relates to conduct with spouses or others. Point 6, no one to enter Lively's trailer while she was undressed. Point 3, no spontaneous improvisation of scenes involving physical touching, simulated sex or nudity, which must be choreographed with intimacy coordinator. Now, he denies the legitimacy and accuracy of each of these allegations, but he made the point, look, I couldn't edit any of these demands. They weren't up for negotiation. We would lose millions of dollars if I didn't sign on to it, cost people their jobs, destroy a relationship with Sony. But the fact that he allegedly agreed to this, and you say, you're just going to agree to a list like this is pretty egregious stuff. Or, Safa, is that an issue for him?
I think it could be looked at both ways. The question becomes, why was this list even introduced, which does not look great for Mr. Baldoni. However, he does have the safety net of saying, this was a film that took time, took money. And again, to your point, Jesse, is that we could have lost a significant amount of money if we did not agree to Miss Lively's demands. Again, showing that power and control with respect to this film. And not only that, but, what else was he supposed to do at that point? But again, and to your point, the fact that this even had to be agreed to. Now, the interesting thing, and to Ms. Dahl's point earlier, was, we haven't gotten to the point of the admission of certain pieces of evidence. Will this agreement come in as evidence will be ultimately determined if there's a proper foundation and if the judge is going to allow it in, which we'll see when we get to that point. But, it's not the greatest, but I don't think it's the worst either.
So, Dina, I'll throw it to you because the counter response would be all those points were things that might have happened on set, but that she agreed to, that Blake Lively, she's manipulating the story here. She's weaponizing what were normal interactions between her and Baldoni and others, and then weaponizing them to make it look like sexual harassment. And so he's like, I none of this happened, but if I have no choice, I'll just agree to it. Your response?
That's laughable. I'm sorry, but that's laughable. That's not how business works. I'm telling you, representing people, there's no way somebody's just going to sign that if there's no truth to it. He has a very powerful lawyer right now. He could have enlisted that lawyer before. That looks so bad for him, that agreement. Signing that agreement looks so bad for him. He knows that would follow him around from movie to movie to movie. And that list is so specific. It's not general. It's laughable to say he just signed it because he couldn't negotiate it. I'm sorry. He's way too sophisticated by showing to have a powerful lawyer like Brian Freeman. And also, here's the thing. That agreement was signed and she didn't go to the press at the time, right? She didn't say, oh, look he's done this and da-da-da. No, it was a quiet agreement. And this she's going to bring this up at court. She's going to say, I just didn't want my workplace to be so uncomfortable anymore. I wasn't willing to go to a coworker without these in fact, but I wasn't going to go to the press. Nobody would have known about this. It's different if she had forced him into it and then talked about it on Instagram or something immediately. But she wasn't the one who wanted to talk about it. She kept it quiet. It was only when she felt he breached the agreement with hiring a PR person to do retribution that it came out. And I think that, and also, just I know you're going to jump in, but just also I think the other thing too is if she had a history of something like this on her prior sets, but she doesn't. And so I think to point to it, to say somehow out of the blue, she's going to suddenly ask this guy, and this guy's got zero power and has to sign it. And then she's going to keep it quiet. What does it benefit her to sign it, to even enter into this if she's planning on keeping it quiet?
Safa,
doesn't make sense.
I'll allow you to jump in. I guess the counter argument would be she was trying to take control over the film, right?
That would be the counter argument, is this is just another way that Miss Lively has gone to gain power and control over this film. What are the benefits that she has? Is there a financial incentive? I don't know if she's named as director, producer, executive producer on this film, but the credits that she would be able to receive as a result of having that power and control throughout and in the film are certainly things that could be deemed as a benefit, and also could go to the point of, yes, we want to continue producing this film. Again, the financial ramifications if this thing were to not move forward, and of course it obviously did. Who would take the financial implications or ramifications because of that? So that certainly could be a counter argument.
Let me first start with Dina with this, actually, because Dina, the counter argument would be, well, he only got comfortable because she got comfortable. So there were messages that were produced from his side where she allegedly wrote, "If you knew me in person longer, you'd have a sense of how flirty and yummy the ball busting would play. It's my love language, spicy and playfully bold, never with teeth." Then there's another exchange that was presented where between Baldoni, he writes lively, "Been deep into writing, really fun with you in mind." And then he backtracks and texts how fun is not the right word, but rather excited. Lively writes back, "You're safe here." The argument would be he never engaged in sexual harassment because she was the one who created this kind of open, casual conversation and set.
It sounds a lot like if somebody's promiscuous, they can't get raped. I mean, texts are one thing, but if those things in that 17-point thing happen, that's different. I mean, she's not saying in that 17-point thing, don't give me flirty texts. That's actually not even one of the points. It is coming into my trailer while I'm nude. It is showing me nude pictures of a producer's wife. It is improvising kissing. I mean, that's way different than flirty text. So you can't sit here and say like, okay, so if you have a coworker and you guys happen to flirt sometimes when you're both getting water at the water cooler, then it's okay for him to now like grab you, right? Grab you. So this is the difference. So I get it. Like, people feel like she was maybe being friendly with him too, and she was, but sexual harassment is like legal. It's a legal term. It is not, you can't sexually harass somebody by flirting with them. That's not sexual harassment. This is evidently he was doing physical, things, or showing nudity or coming in nude. That crosses a line that's, even if that person was friendly, you can still be sexually harassed, even if you happen to flirt with your coworker, if they then start touching you inappropriately.
Safa, is this kind of what we call in the law strict liability? If his producer showed her a video of his wife, or attempted to show her a video of his wife giving birth, is that in and of itself sexual harassment? If he makes comments about her weight, even if he says it's about the fact that he has back pain and he was concerned about how much he weighs for the lifting scene, if he goes into her trailer, even if she allegedly invited him to her trailer one time while she might have been breastfeeding, but maybe not all the time, if there's at least a few instances where whatever she texted and whatever she said were arguably across the line, is that just textbook sexual harassment? He is liable. Is it that simple?
Well, that's going to be something that the jury were to ultimately decide after they hear the proof in this case. But I want to say, it's really difficult in cases like this, and the sword will always cut both ways. To the text message conversation between Miss Lively and Mr. Baldoni is like the key words, I'm yummy, or I present yummy and ball busting, things that are really inappropriate language to be used as somebody who's married and having a conversation with a colleague. Not only that, but again, their relationship appeared to have developed into, something where she was at least comfortable enough inviting him into her trailer while she was breastfeeding and I would arguably say half nude. So where is the line, if this environment has been created? And I don't know, or I don't think that there has been allegations of actual physical conduct other than what we saw in the montage and that video footage where he apparently puts his lip on her neck, or the allegation of that. But there haven't been any other allegations, I don't believe, and I could be wrong, of physical acts towards Miss Lively. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the jury is going to decide these things. They're going to all bring in their perspectives and their opinions as they look at and weigh this evidence. I don't think that it's going to be a strict liability. I think they're going to look at everything piece by piece, bring in their own experiences and make that decision. So
obviously I could talk about this for another 30 minutes, but we don't have that time. So I want to get to two last points. Dina, I'll start with you. I want to talk to you about the Ryan Reynolds, Taylor Swift of it all, where Blake Lively allegedly referred to them as her dragons, who essentially protect her. He made the argument that he felt the pressure after talking with these big stars to accept Lively's rewrites of a scene goes to the idea of her taking control over this film. And I think control, power are big aspects in this. The argument would be against Blake Lively is that if she has the backing of these two superstars, A, would Justin Baldoni really be in the position to sexually harass her? Maybe put that to the side. But B, he felt the need to acquiesce to everything that she wanted, that he was intimidated by her. That's why he was, oh, your suggestions are great, or, oh, I'll let her take a little bit more control of the film, a little bit more of the control of the film. That's why he sent her, and we'll talk about it in a minute, the 2 a.m. voice note, all acquiescing to her. And the fact that she acknowledged that she didn't feel like her rewrites of the scene were being properly acknowledged, and that he felt the need to apologize. Again, the idea of the Blake Lively, the Taylor Swift, Ryan Reynolds component of this, do you think that this hurts her case?
Well, not her sexual harassment retribution case. In fact, I think it helps her because his argument kind of in the press has been she had so much power. She had Ryan Reynolds. I think it was the studio actually who forced him to take her version of the script, right? Not even her husband, but she had so much power behind her. But if she had that much power behind her, why would she need him to enter into a sexual harassment agreement in order to gain the power to have her rewrite? Like, you can't have it both ways. Either she has so many people in her corner, she can just do whatever she wants, or she doesn't have enough. So she created the sexual harassment claim. So I think for her argument, the sexual harassment argument retribution, it actually hurts him to say she was this extra powerful person. Because if you're this extra powerful person, why would you even want this sexual harassment agreement out there? That doesn't help women in this business. Let's be frank about that. That's a detriment to her too. So I think that doesn't help him in the end of the day for that for the actual complaint that's at stake, not for the larger who agrees with her in the public, but for the actual legal claim. It doesn't help him.
So, Safa, I'll end with this with you. The 2 a.m. voice note, as I said, his argument would be, I had felt like I had no choice but to leave her this, apology note. I felt the pressure of accepting her changes. Here's a sample of it.
I'm going to stop rambling because it's been 6 minutes and 30 seconds. So, I'm sorry. You probably have kids all over you and a baby on your boob, and you're listening to me ramble at 2 a.m. I hope you're feeling better, and give Ryan my love. Thank you for sending me that. It means the world to me that you trust me with your feelings and your thoughts like that. And I can't wait to spend more time with you. Okay, I'm done cutting myself off. Good night.
So, Safa, here's the problem I see for him. This 2 a.m. voice note, and again, Dina explained it before, allegedly sent by him. He's talking about her boob. It's at 2 a.m. Talks about how he wants all of her. Now, it's not a sexual reference, but kind of strange for a director to say that. Now, again, she had apparently texted him about it at 1:50 a.m., so he's responding. But he is the director. He is the co-star of the film. He is the producer of the film, right? To be sending a voice note like that, given some of the words that he uses, is that sexual harassment? Is that a smoking gun? Does it hurt Justin Baldoni's case?
I don't think it's a smoking gun because, again, this conversation had been going on prior to his 2 a.m. voice note. Does it hurt him? To an extent it does. But again, I think what's going to happen is when a jury takes a look at this is they're going to determine who's at fault and how much that individual is at fault. If this was a situation where it appeared that all of these allegations were strictly coming out of, him being the aggressor, she's never engaged with him, she's never had any conversations or flirty conversations and text messages or behaviors towards him, then we may be having a slightly different conversation. But the fact that there had been a relationship between the two of them, and I would argue somewhat inappropriate relationship for two married individuals to be having, although they are actors, how is the jury going to determine who is fully at fault? And I don't see that, Miss Lively is going to be able to walk out of this with everything she's looking for, considering that she has contributed to this environment and dynamic between the two of them.
Well, there you have it. Obviously, we could go much longer. There's a lot more details, but I think it was kind of a good overview of what's happening. So, Dina, Safa, really appreciate you taking the time to argue both of these sides. Would like to continue the conversation because I'm sure we're going to be learning a lot more in the months to come. Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, there you go. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.